It's NFC North time, baby. I'm so excited for this one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Water Cooler Quarterback, where we act like we know things about football. My name is Andrew, and on today's episode, we're going to be diving into the NFC North. If it seems like I'm pumped to talk about this division, it's because I am. If I had to pick one word to describe the NFC North, it would be change. Because for the first time in a long time, the status quo of this division has been turned completely upside down. The Lions are great, the Bears are on the upswing, and for the first time since Bush was in office, the first one that is, the Packers have a big question mark at the quarterback position. So let's get into it. While we're on the topic of the Packers, let's address the obvious. Aaron Rodgers is no longer here. Now my script says pause for Detroit, Minnesota, and Chicago to stop cheering. Well, that could take a long time. So we're just going to keep rolling here. Yes, Aaron Rodgers is gone and Jordan Love is officially taking over in Green Bay. During one of the many dramatic Aaron Rodgers versus Green Bay Packers affairs back in 2020, Jordan Love was drafted in the first round. Since then, he has barely seen the field, and the Packers, along with the rest of the NFL, are not quite sure what the team has in the young quarterback. Along with Jordan Love, much of the offense has gotten much younger, namely with wide receivers Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs taking over for the aging Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. And I think this infusion of youth could be really good for the Packers, if for no other reason than the team just seems more naturally happy together. All of the old, grumpy guys have been sent away, and now the youngins can party and have their fun. Now, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are kind of like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together in the Packers' backfield. Jones is your elusive, speedy back, and A.J. Dillon, well, he's your trucker. Just ask the mascot that A.J. Dillon completely bulldozed in an Oklahoma drill. Between the young guys just having fun out there and the dynamic backfield that the Packers have, I think their offense is actually going to be really good this year. A lot of folks think that they're going to lose a step when Aaron Rodgers walks out, but I actually think that they could perform better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. A lot of that depends on Jordan Love, but the Packers drafted him in the first round for a reason, so I have to imagine that he's got something that they are excited about. Over on the defensive side of the ball, the Packers have been set up for success over the past couple of years, but have had trouble living up to their potential. A passing defense that ranked 6th in the league was severely hindered by a rushing defense that ranked 26th in the league, for an overall defense that was 17th in the league, middle of the pack. Now, clearly, you don't get the 6th best passing defense without some star players in the secondary. Guys like Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, and Darnell Savage are real threats in the passing game. And while they're going to miss guys like safety Adrian Amos, I think that the guys they've still got can fill that void and still perform awfully well this year. That awesome passing defense came despite the failings of the defensive line. The Packers had one of the worst sack totals of any team in the NFL. And that's likely why they grabbed Lucas Van Ness, a pass rusher out of Iowa, with their first-round pick this year. Hopefully he can bring some of those sack numbers up. I'd like to see the Pack sell out to stop the run a little bit more. And defensive coordinator Joe Barry has been on the hot seat for a while, and if he can't get the run under control, he may want to be checking the papers for help wanted ads. Now let's shift gears and talk about the winners of the division last year, the Minnesota Vikings. Now they absolutely steamrolled the rest of the NFC North with a 13-4 record. Surely they have to be one of the best teams in the league, right? Well, a lot of folks are quick to point out that several of their wins came in a, shall we say, unsustainable fashion. Perhaps a couple of those wins came from the football gods smiling upon them. Not exactly something that you can count on every single season. A rather startling fact about the 2022 Vikings is that they actually ended the year with a minus 3-point differential. This means they gave up 3 more points than they scored on offense, and they still were 13-4. For a little context, the Detroit Lions, who missed the playoffs, had a plus 26-point differential at only 9-8. Clearly, something about their win total and point differential doesn't match up. Something is wrong with this Minnesota Vikings team. My mind quickly jumps to the game that they played in Buffalo. Had Josh Allen not fumbled the ball in the end zone and the Vikings pick it up for a touchdown, they likely don't win that game. And how likely are they to get a break like that going forward? Then, of course, there's the game against the Colts, where they were down 33-0, and then they came back to win. That's the greatest comeback in the history of the NFL. But why the heck were you down 33-0 against the Colts of all teams in the first place? For the Vikings, it seemed like everything bounced their way last year. And in the NFL, you simply can't count on that every season. And for them, that is where we see the theme of change. Their luck can't last forever. So unless their play changes, the outcome of their season certainly will. Minnesota's strength is certainly their offense. They were 7th in the NFL in yards gained and points scored, but unfortunately they did lose a couple of pieces in this offseason. Wide receiver Adam Thielen and running back Dalvin Cook are both no longer on the team. Now, you could say Thielen had maybe lost a step and was more of just a position receiver, and they did replace him in the draft with Jordan Addison, but Dalvin Cook, I'm not sure is going to be so replaceable. I mean, this guy hasn't had less than 1,100 yards since 2018. Cook is replaced by Alexander Mattison, who in Cook's absences has been a really good back. And I do think that he will find success on a successful offense. Maybe he will replace all of Dalvin Cook's production. Now, as I mentioned, the Vikings did bring in wide receiver Jordan Addison out of USC. I certainly think that he's going to be able to replace Adam Thielen's production, especially alongside KJ Osborne. And of course, there's another great wide receiver in Minnesota. Not just great, the best in the league. Yeah, I said it, and I don't think a lot of people would disagree with me when I say Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver out there right now. He's one of those guys that when everybody in the stadium, everyone on the defense, everyone on both sidelines knows that he's getting the ball, he still somehow makes the catch. So long as he's out there catching the ball, I'm not too worried about Minnesota's offense. The Vikings' defense, though, left a lot of meat on the bone last year. After giving up 427 points, they didn't exactly do a great job of protecting their meat halls, so to speak. So they're kind of looking for answers wherever they can find them, and they're hoping that new defensive coordinator Brian Flores can provide some of those answers. He was a solid head coach in Miami and helped the Steelers maintain a top 10 defense last year. Coming into a situation as dire as Minnesota's, he should be able to make improvements because it's going to be pretty hard to be much worse. With the Vikings' passing defense being 31st in the league last year, they are looking to completely rework the second level of that defense. As former Cardinal Patrick Peterson leaves the building, former Cardinal Byron Murphy enters. And while Murphy only started half of the season for Arizona last year, he has otherwise been a unit-defining piece of their defense. So if he stays healthy, that is an awesome get for the Vikings. They also drafted a pair of defensive backs in the 3rd and 4th round this year, so their secondary is certainly going to look different. Different? Absolutely. Better? Well, we'll see. There is simply no team that has been praying for change more in the NFC North than the Detroit Lions. Things have not looked good for them for a long, long time. In fact, since the 2002 realignment of the divisions, they have come in last place 10 times. In fact, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have more recently won this division than the Detroit Lions. That's an actual fact. Look it up. But perhaps this is the year that they finally win the division for the first time this century. Regardless of the tough times that the Motor City has seen, a new age is dawning. Head coach Dan Campbell has done an awesome job rebuilding this team, and he is the quintessential Detroit coach. He's tough, he takes no BS, and he looks like he has never lost a bar fight. He refuses to stay down, and when he joined the team back in 2021, that is exactly what they needed. I could do an entire video on how much I respect what Dan Campbell has done with these Detroit Lions, but needless to say, he has rebuilt this team the right way. In his first year, they went 3-13-1, and they improved just last year to 9-8. That is a massive jump, and they are now the betting favorites to take the NFC North this year. That is the type of turnaround that a team like the Detroit Lions sorely needed. The Detroit Lions offense, or shall we call it the Goffense, was unreal last year. Amassing 453 points, 5th best in the NFL, they were able to hang in there with teams like the Bills, Eagles, Cowboys, and Chiefs. That is some elite company. Now, the Goffense is fittingly helmed by one Jared Goff, after LA sent him packing in favor of Matt Stafford. At the time, everybody thought that this was a silly move for Detroit, that they were downgrading at quarterback. And everybody likes to sleep on Jared Goff, but the fact is, he took the Rams to a Super Bowl and led one of the best offensive units last year. He may not be the flashiest guy, and he may not be the guy whose name you want to see up in lights, but he gets the job done. He puts the ball where it needs to be, and he does so very, very well. Part of the reason the Lions offense was so good last year was wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had over 100 receptions and 1,100 yards. He was a first down machine, always getting open when they needed him to. And though they did lose both of their running backs, DeAndre Swift in a trade to the Eagles and Jamal Williams to free agency, they filled those roles quickly by picking up guys like David Montgomery from the Bears and Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft. These two guys basically fit into the exact roles of the guys they are replacing. Jahmyr Gibbs is an awesome pass-catching back to replace DeAndre Swift, and even though David Montgomery is also very good at catching passes, he can be more punishing like a Jamal Williams, pounding it in from the 1 or 2 yard line. And it's also worth noting that Jahmyr Gibbs was basically unanimously considered the second best running back in this draft, behind only Bijan Robinson. But the Lions have come out and said that they had a higher grade on Gibbs than they did on Bijan. So seems like they got their guy and they are ready to move forward at the running back position. Unfortunately, the Lions were a tale of two teams last year, where their offense was absolutely phenomenal, their defense was anything but. The 29th overall defense, ranking in the bottom 5 of both rushing and passing defenses, it was clear that something needed to be done on the defensive side of the ball. So they went ahead to fix all that. In the draft, they picked up linebacker out of Iowa, Jack Campbell, who has no relation to head coach Dan Campbell. They also got a safety out of Alabama, Brian Branch. They also brought in a bunch of guys in free agency. Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson are all guys that should be solid pieces for Detroit's defense. Their defense has been completely retooled and should see much improvement heading into next year. Finally, this brings us to the Bears. And once again, we revisit the idea of change, as Chicago fans hope to turn their misery from last season into success this season. In recent years, we've seen teams like the Cincinnati Bengals completely change the perception around them in just a season or two, and it looks like Chicago is trying to do the very same. After earning themselves the first overall pick in the draft by being the absolute worst team in the NFL last year, they seem to be heading in the right direction under GM Ryan Poles. This Bears team is almost unrecognizable on both offense and defense this year. And given the offseason moves and a quarterback just itching to be a breakout star, I think things are looking way up for the Chicago Bears. Let's start off by talking about quarterback Justin Fields. Now, a lot of people will try and downplay this guy's talent, but as someone who has supported this guy and rooted for him since he slid in the 2021 draft, I can tell you this guy is legit. And while the season on the whole wasn't a success for the Bears, let's take a look at what was hindering Fields and that offense. Their passing offense was 32nd, otherwise known as last place in the league, and while some of that could be attributed to Justin Fields' passing ability, I think a lot more of it has to do with the receiving core that he had to work with. We've seen the types of throws that he can make, and they're dang good. Unfortunately, all these throws were headed to receivers like Dante Pettis, Velus Jones, Equanimeous St. Brown, and N'Keal Harry. Darnell Mooney was there, and he's pretty good, but he is significantly better in a wide receiver 2 spot rather than being the main wide receiver 1 on that offense. The Bears' offensive line was also god-awful. Fields was sacked on more than 13.3% of his dropbacks. That's more than 1 in every 8 pass attempts. The Bears' running game was their only bright spot on offense, and surprise, surprise, most of it was coming from Justin Fields. Fields led the team in rushing with over 1,100 yards on the ground. That's approaching Lamar Jackson level type rushing in the year that he won MVP. Fields is also the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era to have multiple 60-yard rushing TDs in the same season. So when I say this guy can run, I mean this guy can run. So what's been done this offseason to help Fields become the star that I know he is? Well, I'm glad you asked. Ryan Poles traded the first overall draft pick to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for a whole host of picks, as well as a true wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore. DJ Moore has always been productive in his time in Carolina, despite being thrown to by guys like PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield. With him stepping into the wide receiver 1 spot, I think Darnell Mooney will be much more successful in the wide receiver 2 spot, and I think the passing game all around will be significantly better. The Bears also brought in Darnell Wright, an offensive tackle out of Tennessee, to help keep Justin Fields upright. They also replaced the loss of David Montgomery in the backfield with Donta Foreman from Carolina as well, who in Christian McCaffrey's absence proved to be a very, very solid back. Between Khalil Herbert and Donta Foreman, I think this running back room is going to be one of the most punishing in the NFL. All in all, this offense has a lot of new names, and it'll be important for them to gel quickly, and I think they can. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I'm a bit of a Justin Fields fanboy, but when he breaks out this season and he proves to everybody that he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, just remember who told you that would happen. Me. Now, on defense, the Bears gave up a devastatingly bad 463 points last year. That's bad. So, basically, their entire defense has been replaced. I'm going to go ahead and read off their new defensive acquisitions just to illustrate a point real quick. We've got Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Rasheem Green, DeMarcus Walker, Andrew Billings, Jervon Dexter, Tyreek Stevenson, Zach Pickens, Noah Sewell, Terrell Smith, Travis Bell, and Kendall Williamson. Now, if that isn't a recipe for change on the defensive front, I don't know what is. The Bears had the most cap space this offseason, and boy did they spend it. They grabbed guys at a lot of key positions, and when I say that this team is unrecognizable compared to last year, they are unrecognizable. Now we get into why I am so excited to watch this division this year. The NFC North is unlike many other divisions in the NFL in that I could legitimately see any of these 4 teams landing in any position within the division by the end of the year. You could tell me that the Vikings would finish first and win the division, I would believe you. You could tell me that they would finish last and be absolutely god-awful, and I would believe you. So I'll go ahead and shoot my shot here. This is how I think the division is going to break down. In 4th place, we have the Green Bay Packers. Now, that's not to say that they're going to be bad, I just simply think the other teams are going to be better. This is the first time we're seeing Jordan Love, and there could be some growing pains as he gets used to actually being in charge and running this offense. I think they'll figure it out by the end of the season, but I just think that the other teams are going to be a bit better and will finish above them. In 3rd, I'm putting the Minnesota Vikings. As we discussed, I think a lot of their success last year was unsustainable, and after losing some key pieces both on offense and defense, I think that they could really struggle. Finally, in 1st place, I'm putting the Detroit Lions. I think this is finally the year that they're going to do it. They've got all the pieces, they've done all the homework, and though I think the Chicago Bears are going to be a much improved football team, and I think Justin Fields could be an elite talent, I just think that the Lions are a more stable team that is solid in all areas. They just seem like a team that is primed and ready to go, and if they do win this year, I will be so happy for them. Watching Dan Campbell change this team over the course of the last couple of years has been awesome, and I just think that they are the team that absolutely deserves the win this year. Now for some storylines out of the NFC North. Whether you follow these teams closely or you're just looking for something interesting to watch in this division this year, here's what I think you should be paying attention to in 2023. In Green Bay, the obvious storyline to watch is how successful will they be with Jordan Love? Could they have found a 3rd Hall of Fame quarterback in a row? It's entirely possible, but I'm not sure if that is what is going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. As for the Vikings, let's see if Alexander Mattison can in fact replace Dalvin Cook's production. Clearly, the Vikings seem to believe in him, and I think that given a full season in that backfield with that offense, I do think that Alexander Mattison could put up a 1,000-yard season. But if Mattison struggles, maybe letting Dalvin Cook go looks like a bad decision. Over in Detroit, aside from watching the boys win the division, I'd love to see that defense improve. They've got lots of new guys, and don't forget about Aiden Hutchinson on that defensive line rushing the passer. I really want to see that defense completely turn it around and be one of the better units in the NFL. Finally, in Chicago, I want to see Justin Fields go absolutely crazy. Now that he's got a better O-line and some significantly better receiving options, I don't see why this guy could be anything short of fantastic. I want to see him pass for at least 3,000 yards and rush for another 1,000 on the ground. This dude is a great quarterback and just hasn't had the supporting cast around him. Now that he's got it, I cannot wait to see what he does. Thank you all very much for watching another installment of Water Cooler Quarterback. Again, my name is Andrew. If you like this content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you know when these videos are coming out. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye-bye.